Greetings from love, lies, and deception. Examine the infidelity stories and secrets with us. When I look in a mirror, I see a woman who was optimistic about her future not too long ago. But now everything has changed, and something inside of me has sparked a crazy desire I had never experienced before. Betrayal and Forbidden Love is a story of passion about how one event completely upended my life. It all started that evening when I met him, my husband's nephew. How did I end up in the center of this whirlwind of emotions and events? What made me cross that line I never thought I'd cross? Keep watching, and you'll find out how a simple meeting can change everything. My life with John was predictably calm. Our days consisted of work, occasional weekend trips to nature, and quiet evenings at home. Everything changed when his nephew Alex came to stay with us. For a while, John asked me to meet him at the airport since he had other things to do. I arrived at the airport early and waited by the exit when I saw Alex. My heart started beating faster. Tall, athletic, with a mischievous smile and piercing eyes, he was the complete opposite of my husband. We exchanged a few words, and I realized that this young man embodied everything that once stirred my youthful on the way home. Alex talked about his travels and work. He was a photojournalist and had recently returned from Africa. His stories were so vivid and interesting that I seemed to listen to them with bated breath. It was as if he opened a new world for me, full of bright colors and unforgettable impressions. That evening, the three of us sat down for dinner. John joked and told his usual stories, but I couldn't take my eyes off Alex. He sat across from me, and every time we met, I felt a strange excitement. After dinner, Jen suggested watching a movie, but I declined, citing fatigue, and went to the bedroom. Lying in, but I tried to understand my feelings. Something new and unfamiliar was stirring inside me. I knew it was wrong, but I couldn't shake the thought of what would happen if I gave in to this forbidden attraction. A few days passed. I began to notice that Alex was also showing interest in me. It was in the little things, in his glances, and how he would accidentally touch my hand when we sat next to each other. John and I had been together for 10 years, and I felt that our connection had become a habit, a routine. Alex, however, was a fresh new wind that stirred my long-forgotten feelings. One evening, when John was late at work, Alex suggested watching a movie together. I agreed, and we settled on the couch in the dim room. I felt his presence intensifies the atmosphere. At some point, he accidentally touched my hand, and that innocent gesture sparked a storm of emotions in me. "Do you like it?" he replied, keeping his gaze fixed on the screen. What caused me to lose the conversation for a moment? He grinned, and I noticed a trace of sarcasm in his eyes, but I also noticed something deeper, more profound, more seductive. I said, "Yes, I like it," feeling my heart race. We were sitting so close that I could feel his warmth. Alex reached for the popcorn, and this time his palm touched mine. I turned to face him right away, and our eyes locked. Alex leaned in my direction, and I felt his breath on my skin. My lips found his on their own, and that kiss was like a spark starting a fire in our bodies that merged in a passionate rush. I forgot everything else except for this one moment when I realized that this kiss was the start of something new, something forbidden and dangerous. I knew it was wrong, but I couldn't stop it. John worked late, and our dinners as a trio became routine. One evening, Alex suggested that we take a walk around the city, and I agreed, hoping that the fresh air would help me sort out my feelings. We both knew that we were breaking all the rules, but that made our moment so special. A few days later, I couldn't stop thinking about the kiss with Alex. Our conversations became deeper and our glances longer, and I felt the tension between us growing. We strolled through the streets in the evening, talking about everything from his travels to my early years. His voice was gentle and captivating, and his presence was unbelievably alluring. When we arrived at a small park, Alex suggested that we sit on a bench. The night was warm, and there was silence all around us. I sat next to him, feeling his warmth and the familiar excitement all over again. "Have you ever wondered why life is so complicated?" Alex asked, breaking the daily silence. "I know how you feel sometimes. I feel like I'm stuck in a routine with no way out." His voice was full of empathy and understanding, and I often feel the same way, but sometimes you have to take a chance to change something. I turned to face him, and when we looked into his eyes, I saw a reflection of my own feelings, fear, excitement, and something else that made my heart race. Alex slowly leaned in my direction, and I couldn't help but kiss him passionately, this time with even more intensity and depth. We sat there, lost in our feelings of forgetting everything around us, and I felt like my body responded to his every touch. This kiss was more than just a spark. It was a wildfire that consumed us both. When we finally separated, I felt like the world had changed. We went back home, trying to act normal, but inside, a storm was raging. I was aware that our relationship was risky, but I was powerless to stop it. The days that followed were full of secret glances, stolen moments, and the expectation of every kiss. We found ways to spend time together alone so that we could enjoy this forbidden pleasure. Every touch and kiss was passionate and full of desire, and I felt like my life was changing every day until one evening when John was late for work once more. The mood was tense due to our secret infatuation, so Alex suggested that we make supper together. He stood uncomfortably near to me, his hands grazing mine, and I could feel my heartbeat synchronizing with the phrase, "Do you know what we're doing is wrong?" He leaned closer to me and said, "I know," I replied, unable to look away from his eyes, "but I can't stop. Neither can I." He whispered, "I can't stop. Neither can I." Our lips met again in a passionate kiss, and we merged in that kiss, forgetting everything else. Our bodies responded to each other's every move, and I felt our desire grow stronger. This moment was filled with deep emotions that bound us ever tighter. That morning started as usual, John. I got up early as usual, kissed me on the forehead, and then left to run some errands. I chose to take a shower to refresh myself and clear my mind as I stayed at home and reminisced about my secret moments with Alex. The water washed away the remnants of my night dreams, but it was unable to erase the feelings that raged inside me. I try not to think about him, but every time I heard the bathroom door open, my heart stopped for a moment, and I froze, trying to figure out who it could be. A moment later, Alex appeared before me. His gaze full of surprise and admiration wandered over my body, and I felt my pulse quicken. "What are you doing here, Alex?" I heard the water running and feared something could be amiss. So I asked, my voice revealing my want and concern. He spoke without averting his gaze from me. There was an unavoidable tension between us. I started, but he was already near with his hands around my waist, and our lips connected in a passionate kiss. I could feel my world crumble under the weight of this moment. Alex, as I watched his eyes light up with desire and realized I couldn't resist this temptation. He took a step forward. Unstoppable Alex lifted me in his arms and pressed me against the wall, his hands sliding over my wet body and my fingers tangled in his hair. We were like two insane people caught in a whirlwind of passion, and no one could stop us. This kiss was like an explosion, releasing all our pent-up feelings. I wrapped my arms around his neck, feeling his body press against mine. The water kept flowing, mingling with our kisses, making them even more passionate. Our bodies moved in unison, each kiss filled with fire and longing. I felt every movement, every breath of his, and it drove me crazy. We forgot about everything the house John was right or wrong in that moment. There was only us, our passion and desire. The water ran over our bodies, enhancing the feeling of closeness and unity. Alex held me tighter, our bodies moving in sync, and I felt us merging in one fervent rhythm. Our lips didn't part for a moment, and each kiss was like a new wave of pleasure, overwhelming us completely. Our connection grew even deeper, and I realized this was more than just physical attraction. It was something greater, something that bound us on an emotional level. I felt each kiss, each touch revealing a new side of me, and it was both frightening and captivating. When we finally stopped, my body trembled from the experience. We stood under the shower, holding on to each other, and I realized that this moment had changed everything. We had crossed a line from which there was no turning back. A few days after that morning's incident in the bathroom, Alex gave me a hug, and I leaned on his shoulder, listening as our breathing gradually calmed and the water still flowed over our bodies, washing away the remnants of passion. but not the feelings that now bound us. I knew we faced difficult trials ahead, but I couldn't make myself regret what had happened. This morning's episode marked the beginning of a new phase in our forbidden relationship, and we both knew we were playing with fire, but we couldn't stop. Our passion and desire were stronger than all the prohibitions, and we were willing to risk everything for these moments. Although I made an effort to act normally, a storm of emotions raged inside of me. I couldn't stop thinking about the moment Alex and I forgot everything and gave in a passion. But no matter how hard I tried, they left traces. John was as busy as ever, spending a lot of time at work, which allowed me to spend more time with Al. We were cautious, trying not to draw attention to ourselves, but every touch and glance only made our desire stronger. One morning, John stayed home longer than usual due to work. I saw that he was sad and thoughtful. When I was about to go to bed in the evening, I heard Joe talking quietly on the phone. He appeared agitated, so I decided to listen in on him without noticing, and what I heard stopped my heart. I tried to find out what was wrong, but he dismissed me, saying everything was fine. I knew he wasn't telling the truth, but I chose not to press him. You won't believe it, but it's from Alex. He wrote to my wife, and I can't believe it. Yes, I did find the letter Jan was saying, his voice shaking with anxiety. It is true that something happened in the bathroom, and he wants to relive it. I felt like everything fell apart. How could this have happened? JN had discovered our bathroom moment. Alex ought to have exercised more caution. As John ended his call and came over to me, I tried to gather my thoughts. He said, "We need to talk." His eyes were filled with pain and disappointment. "I found this message on your phone. What's going on between you two?" I didn't know what to say. The words stuck in my throat, and I could only stare at him, unable to utter a word. "I can't live in ignorance if there's something between you. I want to know the truth." He continued, his voice growing firmer. "I can't live in ignorance if there's something between you. I want to know the truth." I felt tears well up, but I tried to hold back. "I know everything now depends on what I do, but telling the truth would mean destroying our marriage for good, John. It's not what you think." I started looking for the right words, but John didn't let me finish, and I could see his face darken. He slammed his fist on the table and yelled, "Don't lie to me." I read the message. "I'm not blind. You betrayed me." He took my phone and showed me the message from Alex saying, "What happened in the bathroom, I can't forget, and want to repeat these words written on the screen, seemed like a cold verdict to our marriage. I can't forgive this," John continued, his voice trembling with pain. "I need to know the truth. If you don't tell me now, I will find out." I knew he was telling the truth. John wouldn't stop until he knew everything I understood now. Everything depended on Alex. If John started following us, he would definitely find out the next day. I tried to be as careful as possible, avoiding meeting Alex in order to avoid drawing attention to myself, but I knew this wouldn't last long. Every time I spent with Alex was now filled with terror, because I knew John may be watching us and could see every move we made, but our connection to one another was too great to simply end one night when I couldn't take it anymore. John was determined to find the truth, and I couldn't conceal it forever. Trying not to cry, I met Alex in our room and told him all John knows. "He found your message and is now monitoring us." Alex looked astonished, but his eyes did not waver. He hugged me and whispered, "We need to be more careful, but I can't." After that conversation with John, my relationship with Alex became even more strained. We knew we could no longer afford to risk meeting at the house, but our attraction to each other was too great to just stop. "Lose you," his words gave me strength. We knew our path would be difficult, but we were ready to fight for our love, even if it meant risking everything. We made the decision that we needed to find a new, safe place where we could meet without worrying about being discovered. One such location was a small park outside of town, where we could hide from prying eyes among the trees and peaceful walkways. This place turned into our haven, where we could forget about everything and enjoy one another. One evening, Alex and I met at the park. He was waiting for me at the entrance, and his smile lit up my heart. We walked along one of the paths, holding hands, savoring every moment together. "No one will find us here," Alex said, hugging me. "We can be together without fear." I nodded, feeling my heart flutter with happiness. We found a secluded spot among the trees and sat on a bench. Alex embraced me, and I felt his warmth, his breath close to mine. Our lips met again in a kiss full of passion and tenderness, but even in this moment of happiness, I couldn't shake off the fear. I knew that John wouldn't let go of his suspicions and would continue to watch us every step we took. Every meeting was fraught with risk, and that risk materialized one evening when we met in the park again. John decided to follow me. I had no idea he was so close to Alex, and I was sitting on the bench immersed in our world when I suddenly felt someone's gaze. I turned and saw John. His face was contorted with pain and anger. He stood nearby watching us. My heart stopped, and I felt the world around me collapse. "How could you?" Alex, John yelled, and I noticed that his fists were clenched. "John, hold on until I explain." John went closer, his eyes flaming with rage, and Alex rushed up his face, becoming serious and resolute. "You both deceived me. How did you accomplish this?" My eyes began to brim up with tears. This time, Alex stepped forward to try to calm him down. "John, please calm down. We could talk about everything." But John wasn't listening. His anger was too strong to talk about what is there to discuss. "You both betrayed my trust." I whispered, "Forgive us, John." He laughed, but there was no joy in his laughter. I saw everything with my own eyes. "I thought you were my family, but you turned out to be my enemies." I felt like everything was falling apart around me. Our family had been destroyed by our kisses and our secret meetings. I knew that John wouldn't forgive us because his disappointment and rage were too great. "John," I started, but he stopped me. He responded in a pained voice, "I don't want to hear anything more," and I remained silent. John turned and left, leaving us standing in silence. Alex hugged me, and I sobbed on his shoulder. We both knew that our path would be difficult, and our love was strong, but the price for it was too high. After that horrible scene in the park, our lives were forever changed, and Jan couldn't forgive us for the betrayal. "Our marriage is over." Those words were like a blow. I knew that my relationship with Alex would have consequences, but I never thought it would go this far. My heart clenched with pain as he said, "Pack your things." Without looking up, "Both of you get out of my house." John was sitting in the kitchen, his face dark and his eyes full of anger and disappointment. I could see he had already made up his mind, and it was terrifying. That decision he made instantly signaled the beginning of Alex's and my demise. That night, Alex and I returned to a house filled with oppressive silence. "No," he spoke with steely firmness. "I will never be able to forgive you for betraying me with him." Alex stood next to me, his face grim, but he knew that there was no point in arguing, so we started packing our belongings. As I said goodbye to the house, I felt like every room and corner was saying goodbye to me for the rest of my life, and all the memories of everything I had built with John were crumbling before my eyes. John was unyielding, and the very next day, he filed for divorce. His lawyers contacted me, and I realized that there was no turning back and that the only thing left was to try to start a new life, no matter how painful it was. Alex was on my side. We were able to get temporary housing, but it was difficult to get by every day. One evening, as we sat together in our tiny rented apartment, I couldn't stop crying because we both realized that our relationship had cost us everything, and we were trying to find the fortitude to endure the fallout. "Alex, how did we get here? Why did everything turn out this way?" He hugged me, his eyes filled with pain and compassion, but I began to notice a shadow of doubt on his face that I couldn't ignore. One day, I received a letter from John's lawyers. The divorce was finalized, and it was the final point in our story. I held the letter in my hands, feeling something broke inside me. It was the end of our past, and the beginning of a new path. We sat silently in the room, immersed in our thoughts. Tension hung in the air, and I knew uncertainty lay ahead. I saw how Alex was becoming more distant from me, and I realized I might end up alone. Our relationship, which had begun so passionately and tumultuously, was now fading under the weight of our mistakes and their consequences. I knew our lives would never be the same, and only time would tell if I could find the strength to move forward. A few weeks passed after Jan kicked us out of the house and filed for divorce. Alex and I were living together, but each day became more burdensome, for I saw his attitude toward me changing, but I was afraid to admit it. One evening when I got home from work, I saw Alex sitting on the sofa with a somber face, his possessions packed, and I felt my heart freeze in my chest. We were confined to our tiny rented apartment, and it felt like the walls were closing in around us. Without checking, he said, "We need to talk." "What happened, Alex?" I started to panic. "Why have you packed your belongings?" Groaned and at last turned to face me. "Emma." I recognized a resolve and fatigue in his eyes that I had not previously observed. "This cannot go on." His comment like a kick to the chest. I tried to think of anything to say, but nothing came to mind. "I never intended to start a family with you. I was only interested in the fleeting intrigue." "How can you say that?" I muttered with tears running down my cheeks. "Alex, we lost everything for this relationship. How can you simply walk away from him? Are you implying that all this time meant nothing to you?" "I like you as a girl, but nothing more." He bowed his head, sorrow and agony on his face. "I never intended for things to become this bad. I didn't mean to destroy your life, but I can't act like I'm ready for anything more anymore. I don't want to lie to you or give the impression that all I had done for this love was suddenly meaningless, and I felt like the world was falling apart. What should I do at this point?" "I don't know, Emma," he said, avoiding eye contact, "but I can't stay here any longer," as I pleaded, my eyes choked with tears. "I must go." He got up from the couch, packed his belongings, and made his way to the door. I watched him, helpless to stop my heart from breaking into 1,000 pieces. I knew I was really alone when the door closed behind him, and I felt silence descend. Standing in the empty room, surrounded by the ghosts of our past, I felt as though everything I had lost, my home, my family, and now even Alex, was far away and unachievable. I collapsed on the couch, tears streaming down my face as I thought about how everything had gone wrong. I knew that our passion and infatuation had destroyed us, and I now needed to find the strength to start over on my own. Over the next few days, I tried to get used to my new reality, and every day was a struggle to stay going. I tried not to think about the past, but the memories kept coming back. I needed to find a way to move forward despite all the pain and disappointment. I started spending more time at work, trying to fill the void inside me. I needed something to distract me from thoughts of John and Alex. But each night returning to an empty apartment, I felt the sharpness of my loneliness. My friends and colleagues tried to support me, but I knew it was only temporary comfort deep down. IOD that I needed to find the strength within myself to overcome this pain. I needed to find a new meaning in life, a new goal. Maybe someday I would be able to forgive myself for all the mistakes and find a path to happiness. But for now, I needed to learn to live with the fact that I was alone and move forward despite everything. Several months had passed since Alex left. Life without him and John was challenging, but I slowly began to rebuild my life. I found a new job, rented a small apartment, and tried to move forward. Each day was a struggle, but with every small victory, I grew stronger. One of the hardest realizations was that I was truly alone. No amount of support from friends and family could replace what I had lost, but gradually I learned to appreciate my solitude. I realized that this was a time I could dedicate to myself and my inner world. Finding inner calm was aided by the yoga and meditation programs I began taking. When I came home from work one day, I discovered a letter in the mailbox containing an official document confirming the divorce. I held this document in my hands and felt the chapter of my life connected to John finally closing. It was both painful and relieving. I also enrolled in painting classes, which became a true revelation for me because it allowed me to express my feelings and emotions through art, becoming an important part of my healing process. I knew I had a chance to start over soon after I got a message from John saying he had moved to a different city and found a new job. He thanked me for all the wonderful times we had spent together and wished me happiness. I replied in kind, feeling another chapter close. Alex stopped reaching out, and I had no idea where he was or what he was doing, but I knew it was for the best that our story was a painful lesson for both of us. I let him go so I could move on, and one evening while enjoying the sunset on my apartment balcony, I realized I had found my path and was no longer broken. I had learned to forgive myself and accept my mistakes. In a new world where chances and dreams abound, I realized that every experience, even the most traumatic ones, makes us stronger and aids in our growth. Although I was aware that I would face new problems, I was prepared to do so with a grin because I knew that pleasure comes from inside and is not dependent on other people. The past would always be the past, but I had gained knowledge from it that had improved me. I was prepared to start a new chapter in my life and discover the beauty in the little things. I felt liberated as I sat on the balcony and watched the sun set because I knew that new experiences were ahead of me, and I was prepared to welcome them with open arms.